Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome.
Welcome back to the Cultural Default discussion of what has become my favorite film, The World's End. In my part 1 video, I explained how the stage was set for Gary King to become the advocate for human freedom, speaking defiantly to a faceless system of connectivity, literally called the network.
We are the network, and we are here for your betterment.
In the film's universe, this network is behind all of the advances to human technology from the 90s onward, which lines up pretty well for how new inventions have exploded onto the market.
In the last 23 years, have you not marveled as information technology has surged forward?
No.
Gary's resistance to change seems to have served as antibodies for the network's penetration. He is a man still driving the same car, wearing the same clothes, celebrating the same band as when he was a teenager, and he is now approaching 40 years old. He allows himself to believe that a woman, Sam, is sending signals to invite the exact same sexual encounter 20 years later after not seeing her all that time. That all of the bartenders from his hometown would immediately recognize him as some sort of long-lost legend.
My man! Have you heard the news? Gary King is back in town.
Who's he?
And that a young man and his friends would want to join him for the evening out after he's alienated his own group. Gary comes across as a jerk. And he is a jerk.
Hey, that's a bit hard.
Self-centered, to such an extent that he lied about his mother dying to trick his friend, who doesn't drink, to come out on a pub crawl.
I can't believe you lied about your mum. That was a white lie.
How is that a white lie?
She's not dead, is she?
Gary rudely ignores that an obviously distressed Peter is attempting to calm down from an awkward moment interacting with a childhood bully who failed to even recognize him as an adult, and brings shots to the table. This is the final straw for Andy, who announces his plan to abandon ship and return to the B&B before heading back to London in the morning. But just like any good time loop story, circumstances are going to confine the party, in this case to Newton Haven. A frustrated Gary repeats his younger outburst,
almost punching a wall after slipping in the bathroom.
When a young man comes in to use the urinal next to him, he breaks every unspoken rule known to men's bathrooms and tries to chat with him, inviting him out to replace his rapidly disassembling band of old friends. He is ignored, which frustrates Gary all the more, but there is an eerie calmness to this unnamed young man that he is engaging with. Because, of course, he isn't a young man, at least not in a genuine human sense. He is a hollow replacement, part of a greater system that has surrendered individual autonomy. Once someone becomes part of the network, they may behave in ways that echo their humanity, but they are not the same.
I like the new you. Come on.
The network is shown to be good at approximations, but it is neither omniscient nor above its own flaws, like paranoia. Both of these shortcomings are best demonstrated through its interactions with Sam. The network attempts to tempt Sam with the presence of her childhood crush, a man who had died in a car accident.
What happened?
Adrian King was in that bar.
Prick. I thought you liked Adrian King.
Adrian King's dead.
Oh, God.
Adrian King died in a motorbike accident in Italy 8 years ago.
Did he?
The network clearly must have had his DNA on file, but either did not know that he had died or did not know that Sam was aware of his passing, unintentionally revealing its dishonesty as it attempts to lure Sam and presumably absorb her into their ranks.
Oh, crumbs.
The blanks replacing her twin friends attack her because Gary King told her about the network's covert action. But Sam, of course, did not believe Gary because the story would sound crazy.
Come on, Sam. You know better to believe Gary King.
And Gary is already known to be unreliable. The network fails to realize that autonomous creatures may regard each other with skepticism.
What?
Perhaps this is why, all things considered, it eventually rage quits an argument with Gary.
It's pointless arguing with you. You will be left to your own devices.
Really?
Yeah.
It is accustomed to compliance, conformity, and acceptance. For all its technology and power, this multi-world conquering system cannot handle 3 independent, argumentative humans.
You are but 2 men. 2 drunk men.
3 drunk men! Stevie
Enough!
It cannot take being confronted about the nature of their plans in an open and honest debate. Director Edgar Wright has an amazing talent for perfect foreshadowing, summarizing the plot before it even happens. Gary describes in full detail the events that are about to occur.
Anyway, 5 sounds much better. I think they missed the trick only having 3, because if they'd have 5, then 2 could have died and they still have 3 left.
Are we there, yeah?
Wright put a similar scene into Shaun of the Dead as well, wherein key plot points are described early on and then lived out. In The World's End, Gary is attempting to relive a day of his life, so there is literally a map for his progress through the night. Many viewers will notice that the name of each pub is a clue for what will happen at each location. Quick observation: the Golden Mile can't just be some invention by Gary. It has to be a real, local creation for the visitors and residents of Newton Haven. This is evident by Gary's reliance on common familiarity within the community.
Well, we're all from here. We're just back to see the sights, have a crack at the old Golden Mile.
And official materials like the map, something Gary himself could not have created. Let's run through the pubs. First, the First Post. This pub gets a tour-like introduction by Gary. It was formerly a post office. This very likely works within the film's own universe, not just at a meta level. It makes sense that this would be the starting point when the Golden Mile was conceived. It establishes their entry to Newton Haven, and they find it disappointing and generic, like if Starbucks served alcohol. Stephen calls this out.
Starbucking, man. It's happening everywhere.
Second, the Old Familiar. This one serves as the first meta joke. There is no way the network was demonstrating a sense of humor when this was set up. When it's revealed that these 2 pubs are now virtually indistinguishable, it's showing how the town is being stripped of its individuality. There are some subtle hints that it used to be different during the original crawl.
The Old Familiar. Now this is a pub.
But now it is precisely the same as the First Post. Third, the famous cock. Here we have an extremely blatant one. Gary learns his lifetime ban still stands. Looks like he is remembered somewhere, inconveniently. He drinks a combination of abandoned beers and is giddy afterwards, as he's figured out a loophole to not being served. Fourth, the cross hands. A fight, as in crossing hands. Fifth, the Good Companion. This pub has the fewest scenes as they get by with little incident. Gary has been able to convince the group to carry on with the crawl as to not change their behavior in a way that would indicate that they know something is wrong.
Gary thinks we should keep up with the crawl because they know what we're doing, but they don't know that we know what they're doing. And basically, no one else has a better idea. So f it.
Sixth, the Trusty Servant. The sign on this one cracks me up, as it's clearly a painting of Trevor, the man Gary refers to as the Reverend Green, because he sold them weed.
Have you got any drugs?
Don't do that anymore, Gary.
Gary gets him to say just a bit too much, and the trusty servant then must surrender to the network.
Shut up about everything.
Trevor. It's your supervisor.
Thanks a bunch.
Furthermore, this is where Oliver foolishly goes to the bathroom alone, where he is taken by the network off screen and replaced by a replicant Blank, becoming a mole in the party. 7th, the two-headed dog. This is where the twins, not to mention the bartender, show that they are robots, and they are multiple appendages to a common body, or hive mind. 8th, the mermaid. Here we meet
The marmalade sandwich!
who act as sirens. They are also on the sign outside. 9th, the beehive. Busy bees here indeed. The network explains its plans and then fights as a swarm. 10th, the king's head. Similar to the trusty servant, this time we have Gary, the king, on the sign. On the way to this pub, Andy loses patience with Gary and knocks him out, but the robots are abuzz. Gary regains consciousness, and he refuses to abandon this manic mission. Even in the face of all reason, even in the face of apocalypse, this drinking challenge is all he has.
Gary, put the pipe down, yeah?
To Oliver, Pete, and to us. You know, because 10 pubs isn't bad.
It's not. But we're calling time.
And the implication is very strong that he plans to do this one last thing before he ends his life by his own hand. He's already tried once, because the world keeps changing and he wants things to be the same. The hole in the wall. Well, with the car here, that one's pretty easy. And finally, the world's end. Here, Gary reveals that he has been committed after attempting to end his disappointing life. Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg spoke about his choice of outfit here.
Edgar and I had this idea that the reason Gary dresses the same way is that it might not necessarily be that he's dressed like that for the whole 20 years, but he's dressed like this for that night.
It never got better than that night. That was supposed to be the beginning of my life.
It's like when you see an American military officer commit suicide, you know, they put all their clothes on, they put all their medals on and their, you know, their white gloves, and then they put a gun to their head. That's essentially what Gary is doing in this film.
All that promise and f***ing optimism, that feeling like we could take on the whole universe.
You know, you don't learn that until the end, that he's literally got nothing left.
It was a big lie. Nothing happened.
This is a man who was unable to cope with the changes to society and never found his place, having peaked right at the end of school. And yet he has inhuman charisma. He has leadership qualities that just need to be brought out in the right circumstance.
You don't need to do this, Gary. Yeah, I do.
And then lastly, we have when Gary becomes sober, an optimistic ending to the film and The Rising Sun. It is a new day for Gary's life. The party itself is an assembled court led by Gary, king of the humans, Andy Knightley, his most loyal friend, Peter Page, the meekest of the group, Oliver Chamberlain, and Stephen Prince. There is a bittersweet ending for two of Gary's friends who do succumb to the robot alien collective. After Gary wins the argument with the network through raw human stubbornness, the blanks for the friends who had been replaced wake up, orphaned, disconnected. They return to their human counterparts' recent occupation and life, retaining most of their habits and personalities, allowing them to live on in a sense. Replacement by a never-aging replica is offered to Gary as a perk, not a terrifying threat. But a cloned copy taking on your identity could be seen as horrifying, bringing to mind The Prestige. The optimism of The Rising Sun is that Gary gets to reconcile his deepest desires to always have that relationship with his childhood friends, and he maintains that while also growing less dependent on alcohol, the thing that made him a worse friend, because deep down, it's the friendships he had with his childhood mates that are the true thing he cares about, not just drinking pints. At the end of the film, it's interesting to notice that Gary doesn't have a beard anymore. He's shaved. His younger self did not have facial hair. His beard grew with that unwanted creep of time and disappointment. Now that he gets to spend his time with the childhood version of his friends, he gets to do what he's always wanted, to be free and to have a good time.
Who the hell do you think you are?
Me? They call me the king.